My name is Erin Blake. I'm 19 years old. And 2 weeks before I was supposed to start college, I discovered that the future my grandfather spent almost 20 years building for me had disappeared. Not slowly, not by accident. It was taken, one signature at a time. The account held $163,000. Money my grandfather saved month after month since the day I was born. He called it my escape plan. His words, not mine. He used to tell me, no matter what happens in this world, Erin, education is the one thing nobody can take from you. Turns out he was wrong, because my own family did exactly that. They drained every dollar of it. To rescue my sister again. When I confronted my mother, she didn't apologize. She didn't even hesitate. She simply looked at me and said, "Your sister needs help. You're strong. You'll survive." I stood there in the kitchen, the words hanging in the air like smoke. Then she added something worse. "Besides, you've always been the independent one." That sentence didn't sound cruel to her. To her, it sounded logical. To me, it felt like a verdict. But before I tell you what happened next, let me take you back a little. Because the truth about families doesn't reveal itself in one moment. It builds slowly, quietly, until the day everything finally breaks. I grew up in a town called Pine Hollow. Population barely 9,000. The kind of place where teachers know your parents and neighbors borrow lawn mowers without asking. Our house sat at the end of Birch Road. White siding. Faded porch railing. A tire swing hanging from the maple tree. Inside lived 4 people. My mother. My stepfather. My older sister Chloe. And me. From the outside we looked normal. Inside there was a hierarchy. Chloe was the storm. I was the quiet background weather. Chloe had always been the center of gravity in our house. When she crashed her first car at 17, Mom said the road was dangerous. When she got expelled from community college 2 years later, Mom said the professors were unfair. When she lost 3 different jobs in 1 year, Mom said managers didn't understand creative people. Chloe never failed. According to Mom, the world failed her. Me? I stayed invisible. Honor roll every semester. Soccer team. Part-time job at the hardware store since 16. I paid for my own clothes. My own phone. My own gas. Every report card. Every scholarship letter. Every achievement. They landed on the kitchen counter like leaves no one bothered to sweep. One memory sticks with me. Senior year. I walked into the house holding my acceptance letter to North Carolina State. Full academic scholarship. I'd worked 4 years for that envelope. Mom was in the living room on the phone with Chloe. I stood there waiting. She glanced up briefly and waved me away. "Just leave it on the counter, Erin." 3 days later it was still there. Unopened. My stepfather sat at the dinner table most nights, saying very little. He never told me I didn't matter. But he never told me I did either. The only person who ever looked at me like I was important was my grandfather. Grandpa Harold. He lived across town in a small brick house with a vegetable garden and a garage full of tools older than I was. When I was 10, he sat me down at his workbench and said something I never forgot. "I opened an account for you the day you were born." I laughed. "What for?" "For your future." Every birthday after that he'd hand me a small envelope. Inside would be a printed statement. The balance slowly climbing. 10,000. 30,000. 70,000. By the time I turned 18, the number had grown bigger than anything I'd ever imagined. $163,000. Money meant for tuition, books, housing, freedom. At least, that's what I believed. Until the bank call. It was a Thursday afternoon in July. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open finishing my enrollment forms. Orientation date confirmed. Dorm assignment selected. All that remained was transferring my tuition deposit from the education account. Routine. Simple. I called the bank. Gave them my information. Social security number. Date of birth. Account verification. The woman on the phone paused. Not a short pause. A careful one. The kind that makes your stomach tighten. "Mr. Blake," she said slowly. "The current balance in this account is $289. I blinked. That's not possible. More keyboard typing. Then the words that changed everything. There have been multiple authorized withdrawals over the last 6 months. My chest went cold. Authorized by whom? The account custodian. Mrs. Diane Blake. My mother. I ended the call without saying goodbye. The house felt suddenly smaller. Through the kitchen window I saw Chloe's new SUV in the driveway. The one Mom said Chloe deserved after everything she'd been through. I walked into the living room. Mom was sitting on the couch watching television. Relaxed. Completely calm. Mom, I said quietly. She muted the TV. What is it? Where is my college fund? She didn't look confused. She didn't look surprised. She simply said, we used it. For what? For Chloe's business. Ist her. My grandfather saved that money for me. She shrugged slightly. He saved it for the family. That wasn't the agreement. Her expression hardened. Aaron, your sister needed a chance to rebuild her life. And I don't. She leaned back into the couch. You're smart. You'll figure something out. Then she said the sentence that changed everything inside me. Chloe needs support. You don't. Something quiet inside my chest snapped. Not loudly. Just enough. Enough to understand one thing clearly. This had never been a mistake. It had been a decision. And in that decision, I had never been chosen. So I went to my room, closed the door, and picked up my phone. There was only one person left who deserved to hear the truth. My grandfather. And when he answered, everything began to change. And you are my grandson, my grandfather said quietly. And what your mother did, that isn't just wrong. It's illegal. But he didn't stop at calling a lawyer. He did something far bigger than I expected. That afternoon, at 2 o'clock sharp, an attorney named Linda Crawford arrived. She stepped out of a dark blue sedan, dressed in a charcoal blazer despite the July heat, carrying a thick leather briefcase that looked like it had been through decades of courtrooms. She was in her early 60s, silver hair neatly tied back. Her handshake was firm enough to make you pay attention. We sat around my grandfather's kitchen table while she opened the folders he had prepared. Inside were 18 years of records. Every deposit, every statement, every document. For 20 minutes, the only sound in the room was paper turning. Finally, she removed her glasses and folded her hands. Well, she said calmly, this is actually very clear. She looked directly at me. Daniel, the account your grandfather created falls under the Uniform Transfers to Minors Act. She tapped one of the statements. That means the funds legally belong to you the moment they were deposited. Your mother was listed as the custodian, but a custodian has one responsibility, managing the money for the beneficiary. She paused. Withdrawing $163,000 to purchase property for another child does not meet that obligation. My grandfather leaned forward slightly. So what does it mean? Linda didn't soften the answer. It means this is a breach of fiduciary duty. Given the amount involved, it may also qualify as felony misappropriation of custodial funds. The word felony hung in the air. Heavy. Unavoidable. My grandfather turned to me. What are his options? Linda opened her notebook. There are 2 paths. First, a civil case to recover the money. Second, a criminal complaint through the district attorney's office. She looked between us. You can pursue either one, or both. My grandfather didn't tell me what to choose. He never had. He just waited. So I said the only thing that felt honest. Both. Linda nodded, wrote something down and closed the folder. I'll start the process tomorrow morning. Then she stood, shook our hands and left. But my grandfather wasn't finished. Not even close. Instead of sitting down, he picked up his phone and began scrolling through his contacts with the focus of someone already several steps ahead. What are you doing? I asked. Calling someone, he said. Ooh, Laura Mitchell. She's a reporter for Channel 5. I blinked. You're calling the news? He looked up at me calmly. Yes. That means everyone will know. He placed the phone on the table and spoke quietly. Your mother is already telling her version of the story. He leaned forward slightly. I guarantee she's called half the town today saying this is just a misunderstanding. He wasn't wrong. I could already imagine the Facebook post, the prayer requests, the sympathy comments. My mother had always been good at that. She could cry on command, make herself the victim before anyone else had time to speak. If we stay quiet, my grandfather continued, people will assume she's telling the truth. He picked up the phone again. I didn't spend 18 years saving that money so it could disappear quietly. That evening my mother began her own campaign. My phone buzzed over and over. Calls, texts, messages. You're tearing this family apart. Tyler will pay the money back. Just give us time. Time. The same thing they'd used to take it. 6 months. Withdrawal after withdrawal. Slow. Quiet. Calculated. Around 8:30 my brother called. I answered. Aaron, he said, voice tense. Mom told me you went to Grandpa's. Did you know where the money for your house came from? Silence. Then he said carefully, Mom said it was a loan against the house. There was no loan. Another long silence. I didn't know, he whispered. I believe you, I said. But belief didn't change anything. Meanwhile, my mother posted online that night. Please pray for our family. My father is creating conflict over a misunderstanding about finances. Dozens of reactions appeared within hours. Hearts, prayer emojis, supportive comments. She was already rewriting the story, but she didn't know something. My grandfather was writing his own version, and his version came with documents. 2 days later was my graduation party. I didn't want to go, but my grandfather insisted. Go, he said. Smile. Be polite. Something about the way he said it made me think this was part of a much bigger plan. The house was full. Streamers, music, food from the local deli, neighbors and relatives everywhere. My mother moved through the crowd like nothing had happened. Perfect smile. Perfect host. At one point she wrapped her arm around me for a photo. I'm so proud of my son, she announced. My independent one. I smiled for the camera, but inside I felt hollow. Halfway through the party, my great-aunt approached. So Aaron, she said warmly, which college are you heading to? Before I could answer, my mother appeared beside me. Oh, he's still figuring things out, she said brightly. But didn't he have that education fund? My aunt asked. The room grew quieter. My mother didn't hesitate. That was more of a family investment, she said. We ended up using it for something more important. She gestured toward my brother. Tyler just bought his first house. People nodded politely, but not everyone. My old English teacher stood near the window watching silently. My father stared at his plate. My mother squeezed my shoulder. Aaron's always been independent, she added. He'll figure it out. The whole room waited for me to agree. I didn't. I just stood there, because she had just admitted everything, and she didn't even realize it. After the party, my brother found me on the porch. Was the fund really yours? He asked quietly. I showed him the document on my phone. His face went pale. I didn't know, he said. I swear. I know. He sat on the porch step and covered his face with his hands. She lied to me too. Yeah, I said. She did. We sat there in silence. For the first time in our lives, we weren't on opposite sides. But being on the same side didn't undo what had already happened. Monday morning the letter arrived. A legal notice from Linda Crawford's office. My mother opened it. 30 seconds later she was pounding on my bedroom door. You're pressing charges against your own parents? I opened the door calmly. You took $163,000 from a custodial account, I said. That's a felony. Her tears came instantly. This family will never survive this. I met her eyes. It already didn't. 2 days later the story aired on the evening news. And suddenly the whole town knew. The comments spread online. Former teachers, neighbors, parents checking their own children's accounts. My mother tried to defend herself on social media. But something had changed. The sympathy wasn't automatic anymore. People were asking questions. And for the first time in my life, the truth was louder than her story. Aaron, I'm sorry for what you're going through. The message came from a name I barely recognized at first. Megan Halvorsen, my mother's former co-worker. I just want you to know, your mom borrowed $2,500 from me last year. She promised she'd pay it back. She never did. When I saw the news, I wasn't shocked. I was just sad. I stared at the screen. 2,500. Another person. Another quiet victim. Another lie stitched into the same pattern. And in that moment, I realized something strange. My mother's story wasn't collapsing because people were attacking her. It was collapsing because truth has its own gravity. Gravity doesn't need permission. It doesn't need an audience. It just pulls everything down to what it really is. The following Wednesday, Linda Crawford called. "Aaron, I have an update." I was sitting on my grandfather's porch. Warm morning. Slow wind. The porch chime turning lazily like nothing in the world was on fire. "The district attorney has formally opened an investigation," she said. "They've subpoenaed the bank records." My throat tightened. What does that mean exactly? It means they're reviewing every withdrawal, every authorization, every signature, she replied, steady and clinical. With $163,000 documented as custodial transfers used for a non-beneficiary purchase. This is textbook. Textbook. My family reduced to a legal example. A cautionary paragraph in some training manual. What kind of charges? I asked. Felony theft and misappropriation of custodial funds, she said. Given the amount, both your mother and stepfather could face serious consequences. Probation at minimum. Potential prison time at maximum. I closed my eyes. The porch chime rang softly. A clean sound. Almost peaceful. Is there a way to stop it? I whispered. If they pay it back, can it end? Restitution can help at sentencing, Linda said. But the DA decides charges independently. Once the complaint is filed, it's no longer yours to withdraw. The line went quiet after she hung up. And I sat there staring at the yard like I was waiting for something to change. I called my grandfather. He was inside making lunch. Grandpa, I'm scared kropka. Of what? He asked calm. That they'll actually go to prison, I said. They're still my parents. There was a long pause. Then his voice softened, gentler than it had been through any of this. Aaron, you didn't put them there. He let that land. They put themselves there. Every signature, every withdrawal, every lie. That was their choice, not yours. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Now come inside, he added quietly. Soup's getting cold. I ate, but my mind wasn't on the soup. Because something was coming. Something none of us expected. My brother called that Friday. His voice sounded different. Quieter. Older. Like guilt had aged him overnight. Aaron, I talked to a lawyer, he said. My lawyer. Not Mom's. I set my glass down. I'm giving the house back, he said. I blinked hard. The house is in your name, I told him. It's yours legally. I know, he said. And that's the problem. It was bought with your money. His voice cracked, just slightly. I've been lying awake every night, staring at the ceiling of a home my little brother paid for without knowing it. He inhaled. I can't live in it. I'm done. He told me the plan. He'd list the house immediately. The proceeds would go straight into a restitution account. Linda Crawford would oversee the transfer. Clean. Legal. Documented. My lawyer says I'm not legally obligated, he added. I wasn't the custodian. I didn't sign anything. I didn't know. Then why are you doing it? I asked. There was a pause. Then he said the sentence I didn't expect to hear from him. Because I can't be the person Mom tried to turn me into. Silence. Then. I went through the paperwork she gave me, he said. Those home equity loan documents, they're fake. No lender. No account number. No record. She fabricated them. The air left my lungs. This wasn't just theft. It was construction. A paper trail built out of lies. A story designed to survive scrutiny. My mother didn't just take money. She forged reality. Thank you, I managed. Don't thank me, he said quietly. I should have asked questions a long time ago. Then he hung up. And I sat at the kitchen table staring at the wall. Broken family. But maybe, not broken in every direction. 2 weeks later, the DA made it official. Diane Blake and Mark Blake were formally charged. Felony theft. Misappropriation of custodial assets held in fiduciary trust. Channel 5 ran the update that Thursday night. Local couple faces felony charges after allegedly draining son's education fund. My mother hired a defense attorney. Predictable strategy. Claim it was a family decision. Claim it was a misunderstanding. Claim she had discretion. But the bank records didn't read like a misunderstanding. They read like a plan. $9,000 here. $11,500 there. $14,000 spread across months. Always just under thresholds that triggered alerts. Not random. Not emotional. Calculated. And then the DA learned about the fake loan documents. That changed everything. Forgery turns a bad decision into premeditation. Mark, through his lawyer, offered a plea. He wanted to cooperate. To admit fault. My mother refused. She was still fighting. Still insisting she had the right. Still insisting she was the victim. I watched the news from my grandfather's living room. Same chair. Same folded hands. I didn't want them in court, I said, barely audible. I wanted them to be my parents. My grandfather squeezed my hand. He didn't argue. He didn't comfort me with lies. He just sat with the truth. While the case moved forward, my grandfather did what he always did. He acted. On a quiet Tuesday, he brought me to Linda Crawford's office. This time, the paperwork wasn't about court. It was about protection. I want an irrevocable trust, he said. For Aaron. No family member as trustee. Use a corporate trustee. Linda nodded. That's the safest structure. My grandfather slid a cashier's check across the table. $38,000. I stared at it. Grandpa, that's everything. It's what I have left that isn't the house, he said plainly. Savings. Pension reserve. Everything I can give. I can't take that. You're not taking it, he said. I'm giving it. The same way I gave the first dollar. His hand covered mine. Thin fingers. Warm. Steady. It's not $163,000, he said, but it's a start. And that's when I broke. I cried for the first time since the bank call. Not pretty crying. Not controlled. I cried like I was 10 years old again, and somebody finally told me I mattered. He didn't tell me to stop. He didn't rush me. He just held my hand until the storm passed. You are worth it, he said quietly. You always have been. Linda filed the trust paperwork that afternoon. $38,000 protected. Untouchable. Waiting for me. And for the first time in a long time, I believed my future couldn't be stolen again. Consequences didn't arrive all at once. They accumulated. Quiet at first. Then heavy enough to change the structure. My mother lost her part-time job at the florist. My stepfather's electrical work dried up. In a small town, reputation is your resume. People didn't scream at them. They didn't throw rocks. They just stopped calling. Stopped inviting. Stopped waving. And that kind of silence? That's punishment for someone who built their life on image. My brother sold the house. The closing happened 6 weeks later. Net proceeds after fees. $156,000. Every cent went into the restitution account Linda set up. He moved into a small studio. Picked up extra work. Didn't complain. We spoke sometimes. Short conversations. Careful ones. We weren't what we were. But we weren't gone either. Then help came from somewhere I never expected. Mrs. Elaine Harper, my old English teacher, the one who watched my mother's speech at my party and didn't smile, started a GoFundMe 3 days after the story aired. Title: Help Aaron Get to College. Goal: $20,000. It hit the goal in 16 hours. By 72 hours, it was over $60,000. $5. 50. Anonymous gifts. Messages from strangers. I was the overlooked kid too. Go build your life. And then the university called. An admissions director named Drive West. We've been following your situation, she said. We'd like to offer you a full tuition scholarship based on academic merit. My hand shook for the first time in weeks. Full tuition? I whispered. Full tuition, she confirmed. For years. I walked into the kitchen. My grandfather was at the table with a newspaper. Always the table. I stood in the doorway. I got it, I said. Full scholarship. His face didn't change at first. Then his chin trembled. Then his eyes filled. And the man who held steady through every legal threat cried. I knew you would, he whispered. I always knew. Months later, the plea deals came. My stepfather cooperated first. Reduced charge. Probation. Restitution. My mother fought longer. But the forged documents sealed it. In the end, she accepted a plea. Probation. Community service. A felony record that followed her everywhere. And in court she said nothing. No apology. No, I was wrong. Nemsurei. She signed the paperwork and walked out without looking at anyone. That silence haunted me more than the money. Because money can be replaced. But an apology? It's either there, or it isn't. It's November now. My dorm room is small. One bed. A desk. A window overlooking the main quad. On the wall above my desk is one photo. My grandfather and me on graduation day. People ask if I hate my mother. I don't. I'm angry. I'm hurt in places I still don't have names for. But hate takes energy I'd rather spend building something new. What I feel is quieter than hate. And heavier than sadness. It's the weight of knowing the people who should have protected you chose not to. I'm not telling you this story for pity. And I'm not telling it for revenge. I'm telling it because I spent years believing silence was strength. I was wrong. Silence wasn't strength. It was permission. And the moment I stopped giving permission, everything changed. If you're still here, thank you. And if you've ever had someone in your own family take something from you, money, trust, your peace, tell me in the comments. Would you forgive? Or would you protect your boundary? Because I'm still learning the answer myself.